Okay, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and thanks for attending this meeting of the Planning Committee, 28th of July 2022. My name's Caleb Tomlinson. I'm the councillor for Bamber Bridge West, and I'd like to welcome all of you to this meeting. If you've registered to speak, you will have 4 minutes. I'll ask you to come to the mic, introduce yourself, and then start your representations. We don't have a fire alarm tonight, so if the fire alarm does go off, the exit is behind you and we meet outside. Okay, so I will start with the introductions, beginning with the young man on my left.
Good evening, Alex Jackson, solicitor.
Evening, Ben Story, Democratic Service Officer.
Good evening, I'm Councillor Caroline Moon and I represent the ward of Cuerden.
Good evening, I'm Claire Hunter, Bamber Bridge East.
Good evening, Gareth Watson, Camp Green, Gregson Lane.
Good evening, Chris Lomax, Whatley East.
Good evening, Councillor Phil Smith, New Longton and Hutton East.
Good evening, Councillor Harry Hancock, Broad Oak Ward, Penwortham.
Good evening, Councillor Peter Molyneux, Sandry and Walton Ward, and I'm deputising for Councillor Yates this evening.
Good evening, Councillor Colin Sharples, representing Earnshaw Bridge, and I am deputising for Councillor Malcolm Donoghue.
Good evening all, Councillor John Hesketh, I represent Longton and Hutton West.
Good evening, I'm Councillor Will Adams, I represent Middlefirth and Penwortham.
Good evening, Councillor Mary Green, representing Moss Side and Midge Hall.
Good evening, Councillor James Flannery from Middlefirth, Penwortham.
Good evening, Daniel Power, Planning Officer.
Good evening, Linda Ashcroft, Planning Officer.
Good evening, Janice Crook, Planning Officer.
Good evening, Debbie Roberts, Development Management Team Leader.
Good evening, Stephen Brown, Head of Development Management.
Okay, thanks very much, everyone. I'll just remind you this is being live streamed on YouTube, so we can pay each other the respect we deserve. Okay, thanks very much. Right, we've done apologies for absence. Do we have any declarations of interest? Oh, okay, I have Councillor Hesketh.
Maybe someone with an application this evening could have been a councillor in the past. And we'll all know probably that person.
Is that the applicant or is it an objector?
Pardon?
Is that the applicant or the objector?
No, I think it's an objector.
That's fine. Okay. Okay. Have we all read the minutes of the previous meeting? Are we all agreement with them? Can I sign them? Can I have Councillor Smith?
I'll propose that, Chair.
Do I have a seconder? Thanks, Councillor Adams. Can we go to the electronic vote, please? Councillor Lomax, you may abstain.
I abstain because I wasn't here.
All right, item number 5 this evening, do we have any appeal decisions?
There aren't any this time, Chair, thanks.
That were easy. Okay, item number 6, Cuerden Strategic Site, Lostock Lane, and I'd like to welcome this evening Daniel Power. And I would like him to present the item. Thanks, Daniel.
Thank you, Chair. This planning application seeks retrospective consent for the change of use of the land to allow for the exercising of dogs for a period of 5 years. So this slide shows the application site outlined in red with Lostock Lane along the northern boundary, as you can see from the pointer here. Along the western side is Stanfield Lane, which just goes down here. On the east is Old School Lane. This slide shows an aerial view of the application site, again outlined in red. This is taken slightly further out, so you can see the A582 along the northern side, which is Lostock Lane. On the western side again, which is Stanfield there, and Old School Lane along here. You can just about see on the right-hand side the M65. The site forms part of a wider master plan allocation under policy C4, which permitted the site to be used for employment, retail and commercial. That's partly why they're seeking a 5-year consent. This slide also shows the field is currently subdivided into two, which I'll make reference to later. You can see there's a slightly larger field on the left-hand side and a smaller field on the right. So this is taken before the works were undertaken. So there was an existing access that you can just see off School Lane where my pointer is there, and the School Lane access which is here. This slide shows the proposed layout, which inspector retrospective, so which is currently on site at the moment. Again, you can see the two fields which they've kept their subdivision. A larger field on the left-hand side of approximately 2 acres, a smaller field on the right-hand side of 1.7 acres. The lines that you can see denote approximately where there is fencing, which I'll make reference to in the photos later on. To the northern side of the site along the A road, you can see here, this is the parking area. Some of this was partly existing, it was partly hard standing because of that existing access that came off Old School Lane. There's also 2 sheds, which you can see is identified here as temporary sheds. You can't quite see it. So which is one where the pointer is there and another there. This slide shows the proposed plans for the sheds, just to give an idea of the scale of them. I do have some photographs later on. So to the site itself, the photograph at the top left shows the site access. So where the pointer is, that's Old School Lane. As I said, this was an existing access. You can see on the right-hand side, there's some mature trees. That is the boundary for the A582. On the left-hand side, you can see one of the fields, which is the smaller of the 2. The photo on the top right is the view from within the site, looking back towards the access of Old School Lane. So on the right-hand side, you can see the small field again with an access into it. This shows as well the type of fencing that is all the way around the site. So it's timber posts with metal mesh fencing around. And again, the bottom right is taken within the site. So the left-hand side where the mature trees are, that's the A road, the northern part of the site. Again, you can see the amount of access and car parking. One of the bins as well that is used to store some of the waste from the site. And the bottom right picture is with your back to the access looking along. So the right-hand side is the A road. And again, you can just about see here an access for the larger field. So the top right photo is the smaller field as you come into the site. Again, it shows the fencing that's around. There's a neighbouring property which you can just see above where the cursor is. There's a gable of the property, neighbouring property there. The top right picture is the access to the larger field. So you can see the location of one of the sheds, which is again shown in the bottom 2 photos. Again, you can see the fencing that continues round with the mature screening along the A road. And the field that the dogs use to exercise in, you can see some small mounds and small timber benches. So the application seeks retrospective consent for the use to be used for dog exercise. As I say, it's for a period of 5 years, which wouldn't prevent the site being used in the future as allocated under policy C4. There has been some discussions with the applicant following comments from environmental health. As you'll see within the report, we have conditioned hours and they have been reduced from what was originally proposed. There's also a management document in there which outlines how the site will be managed, how waste will be managed from the site. So subject to those conditions, the recommendation is of approval. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, Daniel, thanks for your presentation. I have three registered speakers on this application. The first one is Lee Booth, and I think the second one, Rebecca Booth, has lost her voice, so somebody's going to do a presentation for her. So, Lee Booth, if you'd like to come to the table, and there's a speak button at the bottom of the microphone. If you press that, you have 4 minutes to make your representation, okay?
Yeah, am I all right to speak for Rebecca as well and carry on? Yeah. Right. Thanks for listening anyway, but our objections to the dog field. So we've got a severe loss of privacy. We are overlooked on front and rear gardens. Our rear garden is 25 foot from the dog field fencing. Our rear garden, in respect, is 120 from Old School Lane. Therefore, the comments on occasional noise generated on Old School Lane cannot be compared to the noise we are subjected to that are generated from these fields. I even get the customers talking to us over the fence while we're out in the garden. Almost continuous noise is generated by up to 16 dogs at a time barking, an uncontrolled amount of people constantly shouting, blowing dog whistles and the useless squeaky toys, and children playing football. There have been lots of incidences where there are groups of 15 plus individuals between 2 and 6 dogs at a time. On any one field, we've seen people drinking alcohol, being loud, making nuisance of themselves. This is not exercising and dogs. This is a social family day out, which should be done in the park or at the beach, not in our back garden. This is a loss of amenity. We are unable to use our gardens for family time in the way we enjoy it before the dog fields were put in place, due to the amount of noise and dog owners and the lack of privacy due to being overwatched on all angles. From 8 AM till 8 PM, 7 days a week, 7 days a week, 52 weeks a year. We don't get any break from this, just so that different people can enjoy 50 minutes each without any thought for us local residents. Our dogs are unable to be let out in our garden during their opening hours due to the stress it causes them. Therefore, they are kennelled for 12 hours a day, just so that other people can entertain themselves and their own dogs. We've got large unsightly sheds with huge solar panels on the roof, which look directly face at our property. Security cameras, which are clearly not being used to manage the site effectively, as they don't even watch the fields, so they have no idea our dog escaped and caused havoc. We've got large soil mounds, which are used as place for children and adults to stand on top of, and therefore give them a direct line of sight into our gardens, elevated above the fence. And this can be seen in pictures of and videos all over social media of our home. There was a dog escape the field due to the fence height not being sufficient to keep in large, powerful dogs. This has already led to a dog escaping the field and entering our rear garden. It slaughtered our child's pet chickens. What if our 4-year-old daughter had been in the field or the garden at the time and been the victim of this dog? Due to the lack of management on the site, no one can say how this dog escaped or how they intend to make sure it does not happen again. The fence posts are not fixed securely into the ground. In high winds, they can be seen moving in the ground. The site has brought a large volume of strangers into an area which overlooks our property and valuable equipment, which has forced us and neighbours to put up security cameras to protect our homes. There is large obtrusive signage erected without planning permission and still no mention of it in the planning application submitting, as what I saw. There is nowhere on the website where they tell clients not to use Stony Lane and Old School Lane to arrive at their site only, and an additional paragraph telling them not to leave via Old School Lane. Having spoken to several of the clients over the use of this road, they've stated that they don't read the terms and conditions on the website, nor do they read the rules, nor did they see the tiny sign on the exit gate, which is approximately 300 mil. The increased traffic generated on a single lane access only road is unacceptable, with the vast majority of vehicles travelling to the field using Stony Lane and Old School Lane as a shortcut instead of driving on to the A582 and using the correct entrance to the field. In excess of 70 plus additional vehicles per day are using Old School Lane. This is causing extra emissions and also damaging the road. We've also had clients drive up Old School Lane thinking our drive is the back entrance to the field, as there's 2 fields. We've had them turning round in our private driveways. We've been verbally abused by clients when we are turning into our properties as they cannot get past us. This is unacceptable. The applicants have damaged and cut back trees and hedges which are along the main A582 road, not on the land they are renting, in order to make their signage and site visible from the main road. This has now made the access-only single-track lane which we live on visible to anyone who wants to use it as a cut-through, which has made Old School Lane more dangerous than ever before. The applicants have stated there was parking for 8 vehicles, which they wish to extend up to 10 vehicles. There was no parking at all on this site. It was an entrance to the field. There is no management on site to deal with issues when they arise. They do a very quick dog poo check once a day, if that, and lasts 5 minutes per field, and does not appear to include any sort of fence check from what we have observed. There is no set time for this either. This can be 10 AM, 2 PM or 8 PM. On the day the dog escape occurred, they were seen by myself and my wife to check the area on 2 occasions for approximately 5 minutes. This to me is not hours of checking how this dog escaped, nor did they cancel any bookings, as they are all about the money and maximising the fields. They are not interested in working with neighbours. They didn't even have the decency to come to our home and extend an apology or check we were okay after what had happened. In fact, in an email to the client, they went as far to suggest that somebody had actually sabotaged the fences. We have received emails from the applicants saying that they will only deal with us through official channels and not directly, which shows they don't care about local residents at all. We also have an email sent to us where they have categorically stated they are looking for a new site to move to as soon as possible due to the stress this site is causing to residents and the applicants. The applicants have shown a blatant disregard for rules by applying retrospectively, even though they knew they needed planning permission, as they have done the exact same thing with their Earlham site. Applying retrospective to me shows arrogance and an unwillingness to work with either the council or local residents. There is no requirement in the local area for this kind of development. There are more than enough parks, fields and walks through the countryside, all of which are easy, accessible and free. This development does not add any benefit for us local residents and does not added any employment to the area. It is unsightly and does not blend in with the natural character of the area. Thank you all for listening to me, and we'll get my points across.
Okay, thanks, Lee. Right, I have Councillor Michael Green, the parish councillor from Farington Parish Council, wishing to speak.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you for allowing me to speak. I wish to speak in support of the residents, and what you've just heard from the resident is, in my opinion, an accurate reflection of what is already happening down there. I mean, this is a retrospective application, colleagues, which I'm normally opposed to retrospective applications, but in this case, it actually is helpful by virtue of the fact that it allows us to see what is already happening. So rather than an application saying how wonderful this is going to be and how it's not going to impact upon residential amenity, we can already see the impact that it is having upon the neighbours in that area. If this application is allowed this evening, Mr. Chairman and colleagues, this would allow the operation 7 days per week, which in my opinion will cause a significant detrimental impact upon the neighbours, principally along Old School Lane. There's been a lack of consultation before this application was submitted with the affected neighbouring properties. Contrary to what is stated in the application, the facility is unmanaged and users are creating issues for neighbouring properties. Whilst I note that highways have not formally objected, I would submit that they do not take into account, when they are making their submissions, the impact upon residential amenity. And the impact upon residential amenity is significant. There already is a traffic impact upon what is a quiet access only single track lane, which is only designed to be accessing a few properties in this area. But people are using it to get to this facility and to get from this facility. Already we are seeing regular noise from the dogs which are using the facility and from the people blowing whistles during the opening hours of the site. And there is light pollution, which the residents are suffering from lights which are installed on the temporary shelters. Unfortunately, Mr. Chairman, the poor design of the facility has already allowed animals to escape, as Mr. Booth has set out. And on an occasion when a dog did escape the enclosed area, the dog managed to scale over a couple of fences, got to 7 chickens and slaughtered those chickens in one of the residential properties. Those chickens were the pets of a small, I think, a 4-year-old child. Unfortunately, at the time, the child wasn't there, because I don't know what would have happened had she been there. So I'm concerned about the safety of residents in this area as well from this facility. Clearly, the fencing around the fields is not adequate for the purpose of the facility, and I don't see any proposals to increase that fencing. So I would submit that the facility is not appropriate. Mr. Chairman, the planning application should be refused, in my opinion, on the grounds of the significant impact upon the local amenity of residents, upon nuisance, and in particular upon traffic movements in the area down a single track access only route, which is impacting upon that residential amenity, which we all believe is so important for our residents. Further, Mr. Chairman, I would ask you to take into account the fact that a planning consent for 5 years would, contrary to what is set out in the report, I think prejudice future development of the site. And I know there is already a live application in the system for a site. So I disagree with that point. And I also disagree with the recommendation of your officer that the change of use of the site would not result in significant harm to the amenity of neighbouring properties. I think we already can see, given that the site has been in operation for a few months, we can already see that that impact is significant. And on that basis, Mr. Chairman, I do not feel that this development is appropriate, and I would urge you to recommend to actually refuse this application this evening. Thank you very much for your time, colleagues.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Green. Thanks for your representation. Right, we do have the ward councillor with us this evening, Councillor Wharton-Hydeman. Okay, Councillor, you have 4 minutes.
Thank you, Chair and colleagues. I've only appeared in front of this planning committee to object to applications on 2 times in nearly 8 years as a councillor. So it's very rare that I actually come and speak to you about applications. However, I've spoken to the residents. I also speak on behalf of Councillor Jackie Alty, who can't be here with us this evening, but I have spoken to him. We've agreed. We are both of the same mind on this. There's a few reasons I want to object to this application. The first one I want to talk about, which hasn't been mentioned, is about flooding. So it states in the report that the land isn't susceptible to flooding. However, this land is on a fluvial watch area, and Lancashire County Council GI's mapping software shows that this land is actually susceptible to groundwater flooding. So I want to point out a part in the report which says it's not susceptible to flooding. It actually is susceptible to flooding. I want to mention biodiversity. This is an agricultural land. It's been used as agriculture for well over 100 years. It has bats, it has owls, hawks, foxes, rabbits, lots and lots of wildlife. We've now fenced this area off and taken away natural hunting grounds, natural grounds for these animals to thrive and do what they do. So again, I want to highlight the issues of biodiversity and the impact on the environment it is having as well. The application states about it will use mains drainage for water. There isn't any drainage in this area. Residents actually have septic tanks, and the only drainage is through ditches which go off into the River Lostock. Again, on this, I want to talk about dog urine. We know this field before, it's had sheep, it's had cows, it's had various animals, and they obviously do their business, etc. But sheep urine and cow urine doesn't make children blind. Dog urine can and does. And that's going into our water courses, which ultimately goes into the River Lostock again. So I want to highlight the environmental impact on that from this site. We've heard from the residents and from Councillor Green about the generation of noise. Now, this site is open 7 days a week. There's no sound barrier. It's an open land. Would you want somebody in your back garden shouting Max, 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 or whatever other dog's names, 12 hours a day, every day of the year? Squeaking dog toys, shouting, screaming. You wouldn't. And neither do the residents on Old School Lane. This has a huge impact on the privacy and amenity of the local residents. I want to talk about the shelters. So the shelters have been erected. There is no mains electric to there, but there are solar panels which have been installed on the shelters, and they do have solar lighting. Now, that doesn't turn off at 8 o'clock when the site shuts. That stays on because There's no on and off switch, it stays on. There's no management on site to turn that off. That lighting is there all night, every night, in a dark field, lighting up the area for the residents. It goes dark at 4 o'clock in winter. You then have this site up until 8 o'clock with people shining torches, people walking around the fence line shining torches. That shines into the residents' property as well. So again, that's also another factor I want to take into consideration regarding the privacy affecting these residents. This applicant has got another site in the Manchester area, and retrospective planning permission, I believe, was also sought for that site. So the applicant is very well aware of planning grounds for this sort of site. There's been no thought or consideration given to the residents of Old School Lane. The applicant, I'm all for generating business and generating jobs. This doesn't generate any jobs in South Ribble at all. The applicant doesn't live in South Ribble, and whilst it's making money for somebody, it's actually not benefiting our local community at all. It was mentioned about
time to start tying up now, Miss.
That's fine.
Councillor.
That's fine. It was mentioned about the fences, and again, I've been down. The fences are 2 metres high. They're chicken mesh. They're wooden posts. They're not concrete into the ground. They're not secured in. And we've already heard about a dog escaping from that. You can wobble the fences. I've been down and seen myself. We've already heard a dog escape and slaughter 7 chickens. That could have been a child. I'll end on there. Thank you.
Okay, thanks for your representation, Councillor Hardman. Right, do we have the applicant or the applicant's agent, Kelly Paddock? If you'd like to come and make your representations, you have 4 minutes.
Thank you, Chair, and good evening, members. Many thanks for the opportunity to present to you today. My name is Kelly Paddock of Hugh & Kelly Property Solutions, and I'm the agent for the application, and the applicant is also in attendance this evening. As your officer has explained, this application seeks full planning permission for the change of use of the site to accommodate a dog exercise area. Release the Dogs is a family-run business offering the private hire of fields for exercising dogs. It allows people the opportunity to walk their dogs off the lead, knowing they are safely enclosed and will not be disturbed by other dogs or people. The site comprises 2 fields for exercising dogs, with up to 8 dogs allowed on each field per booking, although typically most bookings comprise only 1 or 2 dogs. Dog walkers can book time slots of 50 minutes via the Release the Dogs website. All slots begin on the hour, which allows sufficient time for users to exit the site before the next customer arrives. There is sufficient car parking provided on site. The facility provides a great alternative for dog walkers that might otherwise struggle to exercise their dogs in public spaces, and provides them with the opportunity to let their dogs wander freely and explore in a safe and enclosed environment. Specifically, it provides the opportunity for owners who may not feel confident or able to exercise their dog publicly to use a space that they can feel comfortable in. For example, those who have small children or a disabled family member to look after at the same time as needing to exercise a dog. The need for such a facility is evidenced by its popularity, with almost all booking slots booked up weeks in advance. The applicant is aware of the issues which have been raised by Mr. Booth and has been in direct dialogue with him on a number of occasions. As a result of the matters raised, they have already reduced their hours of operation, and should planning permission be granted, will further reduce their hours of operations at the weekend. Concerns about noise disturbance are overstated. This is not a peaceful and idyllic location, as the background noise levels in this location are very high due to the local road and motorway network. In any event, as set out within your officer's report, the Council's Environmental Health Officer has confirmed that they have no objection to the development, providing the proposed conditions are adhered to. It should also be noted that the existing lawful use of the fields for agricultural use would allow the site to be operated for such without restriction, which could result in significantly greater levels of activity, noise and odour. Similarly, concerns relating to highways impacts are unfounded, and Lancashire County Council's Highways Officer has confirmed that the proposals will have a negligible impact on highway safety and capacity. Regarding concerns raised in relation to signage on the site, all signage is of a type and size which does not require a separate advertisement consent and is therefore considered to have deemed consent. I can also confirm that there have not been any trees or hedgerows removed to facilitate the development. Only a small number of trees and hedges were cut back at the entrance to the site in order to improve visibility displays. A management plan has been submitted which demonstrates how the site is managed and maintained. This is effective in ensuring the cleanliness of the site and that all dog waste is removed. As you would expect, this is something which is critical to the successful running of the business, as people would not use the site if it were deemed to be dirty. The management plan is to be secured by condition, which will ensure the site continues to operate in line with these procedures. In relation to a dog escaping from the field, it should be noted that having inspected the fencing at the site, there were not found to be any routes of escape, and it is therefore impossible to know how and indeed if the alleged incident took place. The applicant has since taken measures to communicate with its customers to make sure that they have read the terms and conditions of use before using the site, which includes ensuring that dogs are kept on a lead whilst in the car park. To summarise, Release the Dogs are seeking planning permission for the change of use of the site for exercising dogs for a further period of up to 5 years. The application site is allocated for future development, which is not prejudiced by the proposal. As detailed within the officer's report, there will not be any unacceptable impact on the amenity of nearby residents, and there will be limited traffic movements to and from the site. The site is popular and is providing a much-needed facility for local dog owners. Thank you for listening, members. We hope you're able to support this planning application and your officer's recommendation today.
Okay, thanks for your presentation, Kelly. Right, I can now open this up to committee. Councillor Mrs. Green.
Thank you, Chair. I've listened to all the residents and I find it's a terrible situation that you're having to live through, really. As previous speakers have highlighted, if there'd have been children in the garden when the dog attacked the livestock, I dread to think if a child would have gone to protect the chickens, what could have possibly happened. Plus, they've said that they have their own dogs. I mean, their own dogs could have been attacked. I mean, this is a situation in a way. It's a shame they've lost the chickens, but in a way, it's fortunate that nothing more serious happened. And that's not to say that it can't happen again, which I find is a situation that's, it shouldn't be happening at all. The noise, I mean, I've been down to have a look at the site and it's like a mini play park for dogs, which is nothing wrong with that, but there's tunnels and things that the dogs can roll through and have a great time bouncing around. But as you know, dogs do get excited when they do that and they bark and yelp and if there's kids down with them as well and people with whistles trying to control them and what have you, all day, every day, is a terrible situation. You can't sit in your own garden in the peace and quiet that lends yourself to where you live. It's a nice little dark, quiet country lane, single track lane, and you shouldn't be having to put up with all this. I mean, how often are the bins emptied for dog waste and things like that? I mean, how often do they overspill? I mean, that's another concern. If there's no management down there, how often are they emptied? It's another concern with children going on there and that with dog waste in there. And the other thing that stood out for me was the traffic incident. It's a narrow road. It's a one-lane road, little track. And it's a cut through, which up to now, nobody has used as cut through, only the residents. But instead of turning left back onto the bypass, etc., if you turn right, straight onto Stanleyfield Lane, and it's a shortcut across. And its nature, people use shortcuts. So there's going to be an increasing amount of traffic as this place becomes more popular and more well-known to people. So, I mean, they've got traffic, loss of amenity, the danger with these dogs. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, I've not heard anything that I would say that warrants continuing with this. Not at least for another 5 years is a long time. A lot of things can happen in 5 years. So I propose refusal.
Okay, Councillor Green, thanks for that. So that's a proposal for refusal. I've got Councillor Flannery and then Councillor Lomax.
Thank you, Chair. Just obviously the applicant's new to the area, so just give you some context. This committee is very, very fair. Everything gets taken in terms of what's presented. The officers made a recommendation. We've had the report. But a key thing about South Ribble is this. Our residents and our ward councillors are very, very important to us. So this is a good idea. This is a shame. So if you would have come and spoke to us and said, we've got this idea, the ward council would have probably brought you in. They would have probably met with the economic development team. We maybe found a site which is probably suitable. What we don't we don't like to see or hear is Lee and his wife over there coming in here explaining how this has had an impact on their lives, to the detriment really of their lives. Not intended, I'm not saying it was intended at all. But there's a few little cues here which stand out to me. If you've done it before, and I am a business owner, you've gone for retrospective again. Seems a bit naive, if you don't mind me saying. You shouldn't have to do it again. If you've done it once, you realise your mistake and say, let's go again. Because if you're investing, you're taking a risk. You're going to invest in something which seems okay. But you're in this situation tonight where one of our fellow councillors has already spoke against it. The management of the site is some things the ward councillor mentioned about the lighting of a night, which it could be an actuator, which could probably, turn that off at times, but that's not being considered. Highways never comment on things like this for some reason. But we've got to be balanced, and we've got to also make sure our residents are safe and their families are safe. And our South Ribble is a good place to do business, but do it properly, please. So I'm going to support the refusal. Thank you.
Councillor Lomax. So that's Councillor Flannery seconding the proposal for refusal by Councillor Green. Councillor Lomax.
This is an amenity asked for by local people. However, to me, the fences are not secure enough. The fences are not high enough. They know about the planning procedures and they haven't followed them. We could go and vote for it, we could defer it, or we could refuse it. If we defer it, it stays open. If we vote for it, it stays open. This is not safe enough for our residents. It's not safe enough for the dogs. I would have loved for you to come and talk to us because it is an amenity that I think is needed. However, I also will vote for refusal because I don't think it's safe enough for the dogs that are using it, the local people in the area and their privacy. You know about the planning laws, and retrospective twice is not good enough.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Lomax. I have Councillor Watson, Councillor Sharples and Councillor Moon in that order, please.
Thank you, Chair. Could I just ask a question about on page 13, it mentions that a 2 metre fence is to be put on the site. That's a new fence that's not currently there from the way it reads, or is that the current fence that is there?
Daniel, would you like to answer that question?
Apologies if that's not clear. That is the existing fence there. So the existing fence is 2 metres in height.
So I think a lot of what we've heard could actually be avoided. The issues could be avoided by having a significant enough fence, say acoustic fencing or whatever of similar height, in order to protect the residents from that. And again, to get over a 2 metre fence for a dog's a bit of an achievement at the best times. I know that businesses like this are popular. I haven't used this particular one. I have been to it to look at it, but I've used these myself for my dogs. And there's certainly nothing when I went to that site that immediately jumped out at me, but I have heard everything that's been said, and I do understand, obviously, there is an impact, and certainly things like the light, as Councillor Flannery's mentioned, a fairly simple switch can be added in to stop that light being an issue, but a fence, frankly, would probably do that as well, to block it to anyone that could actually see it. I personally think that probably deferrals that would be the way I would be going with this. on the grounds of them going back and basically improving some of that protection for the residential amenity by putting a more significant fencing, more or less, along that particular side that's going to be affecting them. The other thing I was just wanting to ask as well, the the road that's being accessed and used, it's been referred to as access only. Is it definitely access only, or is it just a public highway that could have been accessed by anyone anyway at any time? It's just now being used more.
I think from personal knowledge, I think it's a public highway, Old School Lane, but Stormy Lane is access only. I think I'm correct in saying they're both access only. Okay, so they're both access only.
Okay. So yeah, that would certainly be, again, the problem is with highways not commenting, it's very hard for them to refuse on that.
Do they ever?
No, I appreciate that, but of course, to put a refusal in on that ground, we can't do that, obviously. And there are plenty of other good reasons for doing so. But again, I don't see the need to refuse this at this stage. I think that with a little extra work, with some communication with the residents and so on, that this potentially could be resolved. So I'd like to propose it's deferred.
Okay, so Councillor Watson is proposing deferral. Councillor Sharples, please.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, it's a pity that we're discussing this in its current context. It's retrospective, because I'm sure there was something we could have done otherwise. I just look, I've made some notes here that there's things that stand out. There's the noise, the management, and being unattended, the insecurity of the fences, the lighting. Yeah, you can probably fix the management part of it. You can probably fix the fences part of it. I think that's possible, and even the lighting could in some way be solved. The one that worries me is the noise and the privacy. And the applicant did mention, well, there's a motorway nearby and that noise is persistent, constant. I don't think that applies here because, for example, I've visited a friend in Slough recently and he's got airplanes going over his house every 2 minutes. And I said to him, how do you put up with that? Well, we don't notice after a while. And that'll be the same with the motorway. But this is different because those dogs barking or not yapping, it might be quiet for 10 minutes. And you might not have having many people on for half a day, and the next day, yap, 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 people calling. So that noise aspect that the applicant mentioned, I don't think that applies. And I think, really, I'm going to go with refusal because I don't think no matter what you do on that site, that noise and the effect on residents' privacy is not going to go away. And it's just a pity we can't find somewhere else more suitable. But I'm going to support refusal, Chair.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Sharples. Councillor Moon, then Councillor Adams.
Thank you, Chair. I'll come straight out and say I'll be supporting refusal of this application. I think credit to the agent who spoke, who valiant effort in presenting the positives of the application, and I understand why an agent would come and do that. But for me, there was nothing said that took me away from my position of refusal. For me, every which way you look at this, to make this planning application acceptable to me as a planning member, the things you would need to do on this site to make it acceptable would then push me into a place where I think there'd be a detrimental impact on the amenity of the neighbours. So whichever way I go, for example, if you're going to put a fence up that for me would be secure enough so that if I lived there with a 4-year-old in the garden, I could relax and think my 4-year-old is not going to get eaten by a dog, you'd have to put a significant fence with a significant top on it that no animal's going to get out of. And then that is going to be visually very detrimental. So whichever way you look at it, if you do an acoustic fence, that is visually quite detrimental. You can't have this flimsy fence, which is what it is, which is being hailed as a positive because visually you can hardly see it because it's mesh and you can't see it. And then it's not doing anything to protect anybody. So it doesn't matter where I go, it doesn't work. I think the other thing that really concerned me is it says in here there is no significant impact on those residents. Yet they talk about the elevation of a soil mound and what that then does. You talk about your house. How would you feel to have your house on video and photo rocking up on social media when that's your home and your privacy and your children playing in the garden? I just, I'm sorry, Chair. I just think, yes, the retrospective thing grates on me, but I probably could have gone past that. But I just can't overcome these obstacles. So I think even if you brought it back in front of me with all these different tweaks in, which would satisfy the concerns tonight, you then tip me into detrimental impact on the amenity. So I've nowhere to run with it. So it's refusal every day of the week.
Okay, there's no need to be sorry, Councillor. There's no need at all to be sorry. Councillor Adams.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, this is a difficult one, really. Having read it before the meeting, I did have a slightly different view. But obviously, I always come into these meetings open-minded and listen to the people who know these areas the most, which is the residents and the ward councillors. And, you know, there's obviously very legitimate concerns that have been raised. And for me, you know, I'd like to have seen the applicant work with local members and local residents to try and mitigate some of the concerns that have been raised. But I do think that I do want to agree with actually Councillor Watson in terms of would a deferral help the situation in terms of supporting new business in South Ribble, but also support the residents who live in the area. And I don't think it's too far away from being acceptable in some cases. I do think there's, you know, quite significant areas where they need to work on. But I'm kind of thinking that this site is going to have quite significant development in a few years' time. And that's obviously nothing to say on this application, but I do feel as though that the noise elements of this, and having used the A582 and seen how busy it is, I do struggle with that in terms of dogs barking and things. And I get the fact that dogs can bark loudly and the impact of that, but I do struggle to turn this down on the element of noise. And I'm not sure what are the exact reasons we're going for refusal on this. So if I get some clarity on exactly what it is that we are proposing refusal for, but I am minded to support and second Councillor Watson's proposal of deferment to try and, you know, to allow the applicants and the residents and the council to come together to try and find a way forward. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Adams. Right, I've got Councillor Hesketh, then Councillor Molyneux to speak, and then I'm going to draw the debate to a close, I think. Right. Councillor Hesketh.
Right, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I've got mixed feelings in connection with this because it's a shame, really, that the area, you know, is needed for exercise. People in that area do need somewhere to take the dogs. A lot of people haven't got the facilities at home. And that sort of gripes me a little bit that maybe we are going to turn it down. Could it not be, really, I've got to be careful what I say because Councillor Adams says that I agree with him all the time. But, you know, maybe if we had more control over it, you know, we had discussions and more control and so forth, better management and so on, I think that maybe somewhere along the line we could come to a meeting halfway. So that would, there again would be that it would be deferred, in my opinion. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Hesketh. Councillor Molyneux.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. For me, location is a real concern in this application. Too much noise going on every day, day in, day out. You know, it must drive these neighbours balmy as far as I'm concerned. I can't see it being very sensible. The location is completely in the wrong place. If it was a bit further and they couldn't hear it, but constant dogs barking, and it's not for me. Management, as far as I'm concerned, is a lot to be desired, and it's too intrusive for me. A lot more has been said this evening that I agree with as far as I would support refusal this evening. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Mullen. I did say I were going to bring it to a close, but Councillor Smith, you've intimated you want to speak.
Thank you, Chairman. I don't want to go over too much of it, but I mean, I came in to the meeting, as Councillor Adams says, I thought it looked a reasonable application, to be quite honest. And these areas, particularly since the sort of COVID thing and the amount of dogs that are actually around the place now, do need somewhere to exercise. But I've been heard from the residents, and I have some sympathy, a lot of sympathy with them. I mean, where I live, the police dogs and the police training centres, I mean, it's about half a mile away or across the fields from me, but I can hear them on a regular basis, and it is an absolute pain, to be quite honest. Depends on which way the wind's blowing. And the management, I mean, having not set up a proper management procedure to manage the site in a proper way and treat it professionally and properly with the residents is unforgivable, really, to be quite honest. And sort of listening to what the residents have got to go through with this, I will be voting against it, Chair. And I think the residents have got something probably a bit worse than this coming over in a few years' time, but when the site is fully developed, and we don't know what that is going to take, but it's, you know, we all know at some stage it is going to happen, whatever it might be. So maybe a bit of peace and quiet for the next few years until whatever happens on that site happens would be a good thing for them. So having sort of thought it was a good idea to start with, having listened to it, I've changed my mind. I will be voting for refusal, Chair. Thank you.
Okay, thanks for that, Councillor Smith. Right, I'm going to draw to a close. We've had proposal for refusal that's been seconded, and then we've had an amendment for deferral, which has been seconded. So, Alex? Reasons for refusal, please. I would have thought neighbour amenity. Stephen?
Yeah, just based on what we've heard, I've written the use by virtue of the nature of the activity and associated noise, loss of privacy and traffic generation is seriously detrimental to the amenity of neighbouring residential property, contrary to the provisions of policy G17 of the South Ribble Local Plan. I think that encompasses most of what has been said.
Right, as I was saying, we've had a proposal for refusal that's been seconded, and then we've had an amendment for deferral, which has been seconded. So we will go to the vote on the amendment first for deferral. Those in favour of deferral, please press your buttons when you're prompted. Okay, Alex, if you can give us the outcome of that.
Thank you, Chair. Members have voted by 10 votes to 3 to not defer the application.
Okay, so we will go to the proposal for refusal, which was proposed by Councillor Mrs Green, seconded by Councillor Flannery. All in favour of refusing the application, please vote now. Okay, Alex, if you can give us the result of that vote, thanks.
Thank you, Chair. Members have voted by 10 votes to 3 to refuse the application for the reasons given by the planning officer.
Stephen, did you want to come in just before we close this item?
Yeah, just quickly say, because obviously this is an existing use, would also need to seek enforcement action permission from yourselves.
Yeah, that's no problem, that. Okay, so if you were just here for that application this evening, if you'd like to leave or if you'd like to stay. Okay, moving on to item number 7 this evening, 249B, Station Road, Bamber Bridge. Linda, if you'd like to present the item, please.
Thank you, Chair. This application relates to a drinking establishment known as Langson York and is situated immediately to the north of a railway line. The attached premises to the north is occupied by enterprise car and van hire. The area is set outside the Bamber Bridge District Centre with a mix of commercial and residential properties in the immediate area. Residential properties lie to the north and to the southwest of the railway on Station Road, and to the north east and to the east of a site situated on Princess Street. The premises has an outside area set to the rear, which backs onto a car parking and maintenance area associated with enterprise. So this is just a visual of the premises from Station Road. So this is a view from the rear of the site. This is timber fencing that encloses the rear area, which I presume is used for external smoking area. And then here we've got sort of the yard area associated with enterprise. And then at the rear here are properties on Princess Street. Again, these are other residential properties adjacent. So these are properties that are fronting Station Road, and then the properties backing onto the ones on Station Road that are on Princess Street. And this garage is associated with the Enterprise Rental Hire Company. So this application is for a variation of condition number 8 to allow the playing of live music from 10 a.m. to midnight, Monday to Sunday. The Parent Planning Permission of last year restricted this to after 5 p.m. on any day. The reason for this condition was primarily due to the use of the first floor as office accommodation, but was also in the interest of the amenity and to safeguard living conditions of nearby residents. The application is also for the variation of condition number 10 to change the opening hours from 8 a.m. to midnight on any day to 10 a.m. to 12:30 a.m. on a Monday to Wednesday, and from 10 a.m. to 1:30 a.m. on bank holidays, and from 8 a.m. to 1:30 a.m. Thursday to Sunday. The application to vary these conditions is to bring the hours in line with those stipulated on the premises licence. And we have since received an update sheet, which hopefully councillors will have had copies of those, and it was to notify of an email that we'd received from the agents advising that the applicant has confirmed that they are willing to have the live music only commencing from 5 p.m. So that's sticking what they've already got the permission for, and ceasing at 12:30 a.m. So just to ensure that there's no disturbance to adjacent neighbours in the same building, so i.e. the commercial premises at first floor. So 4 letters of objection have been received, and Environmental Health have commented that nothing has changed fundamentally to substantiate the varying of condition 8 and 10, and as such would have a detrimental impact upon nearby residents and occupiers of the first floor commercial premises. The application is recommended for refusal.
Okay, thanks for your presentation, Linda. Okay, we don't have any registered speakers on this one, and no ward councillors wishing to speak on it.
Of course.
I do have the applicant's agent here, and Mr. Fish, if you'd like to come to the table. Sorry? You have registered to speak? Yeah.
Good evening. My name's Stephen Fisher, Fish Associates Architects from Bolton. We are the agents for Ash Investments, the client and the applicant for this. We do accept and note that Linda is recommending this for refusal, and we'd like to take the opportunity to be able to consult further with the planning department and environmental health to find out exactly what the main concerns are and to see if these can be addressed. So rather than try and fight, if that's the right expression, this application today, we would prefer to actually have further consultation, like I said, with environmental health and the planning authority to see if we can find a way forward. So on that basis, we would ask if the application can be deferred.
Okay, is Councillor Smith?
Would it not be sensible just to withdraw the application and resubmit it when the work has been done?
It's up to the applicant that if he wishes to defer. I mean, and Councillor Moon, then Councillor Adams.
I was just going to say, Chair, what more could you ask for an applicant? Yes, I take your point, Councillor Smith, that you could withdraw, but we've got the gentleman sat here saying, I want to defer this to do some more talking. Now, if other members of the committee might be minded to think, no, unacceptable, refuse, I wouldn't. I think if there is a middle ground anywhere, then you should try and find it. If there isn't, it will come back and it will get discussed. So for me, I would be more than happy to take that and I'd be happy to move that proposal, Chair.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Moon. Councillor Adams, then Councillor Flannery. I'm sorry, I forgot about you, Councillor Flannery.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for not forgetting about me. No, I would agree with Councillor Moon. I think that it makes sense. You know, in the last item, I spoke about the need for applicants and residents in the council to work together, and it sounds like that's what the applicant wants here. So, in my mind, that's a very easy decision. I'd support deferral. Second Councillor Moon's proposal. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Adams. Councillor Flannery.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Well, well done, Stephen, for coming in and saying that, because you're all right. There would have been a temptation to fight it and see what the outcome was. But we are pro small businesses, SMEs in South Ribble, and this is obviously a small business who wants to do well. So you made a sensible decision. So your client should be proud of what you just recommended, and I'll go along with that. So well done.
Do I have anyone else? No further proposals. Are we all happy to defer the application?
Can I just say, do we need one of us to propose it rather than?
I'm quite happy to take it as a block.
Okay, all right.
The applicant has asked us to defer, and I'm quite happy if we do it as a block. We don't even need to do the electronic. Councillor Moon's in agreement, Councillor Adams is, Councillor Flannery is. Are we all happy to defer the application? Show of hands, please, the old-fashioned way. Alex?
Thank you, Chair. Members have voted unanimously to defer determination of the application.
Okay, thank you very much. Thanks for presenting, Mr. Fish. Thank you. Right, moving swiftly on to item number 8. Lesser Marsh House Farm, Station Road, Little Hoole. Councillor Hesketh? They're not related to you, these, are they? Daniel, if you'd like to introduce this item, please.
Yes, thank you, Chair. This application seeks outline consent with all matters reserved for the demolition of the existing buildings on the site and for 2 dwellings. So the first slide shows the application site in red, which is to the west of Little Hoole and to the south of Station Road. So this slide shows, again, the application site in red and shows the existing buildings on the site. This existing buildings are approximately 6,000 cubic metres. The site is within the green belt, and permission was granted in 1998 for the building to be used for manufacture, conversion and sale of horse boxes, but has recently been vacant for the past few years. As the application is for an outline, the applicant is required to submit an indicative plan, which is what you can see on the screen. It does show that you can fit 2 dwellings within the site, and they would be within keeping of the character of the area as well. So this slide shows the access on the left with the building to the rear, and the picture on the right shows the extent of the existing building. So the buildings that you can see in front of you will be demolished, and this, if it were to be granted, would permit outline permission for residential. So the last slide shows the access from the east and the west. So it is just the point that you can see here. As you can see, there's some residential properties on the left-hand side as well, which is what we could see in the slide before. So the application is recommended for approval for the reasons outlined within the report and subject to the conditions within the report. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thanks for your report, Daniel. Right, we don't have any registered speakers. We don't have the ward members. Do we have the applicant or the agent? Chris Betteridge via Teams.
Hi.
Good evening.
Good evening. Hi. Thank you. I'm speaking on behalf of the joint applicants, Mr. Shahasvar and Mr. Matheson, who are both self-builders seeking to build their own homes on the application site. This application will allow them to come forward with their own house design proposals through the securing of permission for 2 self-build plots. Whilst the application is an outline, as self-build plots by their very nature, subsequent houses will be of high quality and of bespoke design in keeping with the surrounding area. The proposals will result in the removal of vacant and unattractive buildings which have not been in use since 2019, and all services have since been disconnected. The existing development is also subject to a specific occupancy clause limiting their use to the construction, maintenance and repair of horse boxes. The proposal represents a significant change from those previously presented in committee in relation to this site, substantially reducing the amount of development. The scale of the proposal is now comparable with other schemes approved in similar locations in the western parishes, where 1 or 2 houses have been approved on similar brownfield rural or semi-rural sites. It is also important to point out there are no objections from local residents who have previously raised concerns with previous proposals for the site's development. As such, this revised submission appears to have overcome issues that neighbours previously raised. The officer has assessed the application and advises the proposal is policy compliant and the development is acceptable. Just a minor point of note, the officer's report refers to an estate-style development in the conclusion. I assume that this relates to the previous proposals and not the current application, which is for 2 plots for bespoke self-build homes. In conclusion, the proposal will provide 2 high-quality homes utilising a vacant brownfield site for a general form and scale of development the council has approved on other similar sites. There are no objections from any neighbouring residents, and the proposal accords with national and local policy. The proposal will improve the visual appearance of the area and will generate less traffic than the lawful commercial use of the site, resulting in betterment for neighbouring residents. It's respectfully requested that the members follow their officer recommendation and approve the application. Thank you very much.
Okay, thanks, Mr. Betteridge. Do I have Andrew Booth, the applicant? Is he? No.
No, sorry, it was just me, Chair. Sorry.
Okay, it's just that he's listed down as a speaker. It's okay, don't worry about it.
Sorry.
Okay, all right. Okay, I will now bring the application into committee and Councillor Moon.
Thank you, Chair. I'm happy to move approval with conditions on this. It reminds me, for those people who were here, it reminds me of the Fowler Lane application. I don't know if people can remember the application for the scrapyard, what was the scrapyard at Fowler Lane, and it was a greenbelt designation. It was a manky mess, quite frankly, but there was kind of a little bit of excitement about the fact that, oh, it's greenbelt, we know how protective we are of greenbelt. But it was just a reminder that it's a designation. It wasn't a green field any more than this is a green field. So for me, I think the fact that it's cumulatively, the build area will be less. The fact that you've got your neighbouring properties who have previously said, oh, hang on a minute, are now saying, we're all right with this. Yeah, Chair, I think this is personally a step in the right direction for that area compared to what they've got there now. So I will be happy to move approval with conditions.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Moon. Councillor Lomax.
Sorry, I didn't put my hand up. I do apologise.
Councillor Flannery.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I'll be quick. Yeah, because I remember this one before and there was a lot of people against it, including the local farming community. So obviously people are not doing it tonight and they're not opposing it. there needs to be a solution for this site. As to quote Councillor Moon, there's a term I've never heard before, a manky mess, which is one I've just noted. So, yeah, it's good to see a solution for us. It is effectively a brownfield area in a green belt location. So I'm happy to second the proposal. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Flannery. Councillor Hesketh.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As far as I'm concerned, this application is more acceptable. The only fear that I have is this a stepping stone to extend the site at a later date? That is one of the things that worries me. I know tonight what we have to decide is whether we accept these particular ones. And as far as I'm concerned, we do. But as I say, I have that worry in the back of my mind that could happen at a later date. So other than that, I'm quite happy with it, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Hesketh. Councillor Mrs. Green.
I'm going to put the cat among the pigeons. You would be very surprised if I didn't complain about it being greenbelt. Categorically, page 22, it says the site is designated by policy G1, greenbelt of the South Ribble local plan. Goes on to mention it on page 23 and again on page 25 on paragraph 9.1.2, where it says there's a paragraph all about it, and then it's on about at the end, local planning authorities should ensure that substantial weight is given to any harm to the green belt. Now, the building already on there, it might well be a mess. I'm not saying they're not a mess, but they've been agricultural buildings in the past, which is allowed on green belt. Now there's a proposal for 2 properties. And as Councillor Hesketh has said, I too am a bit concerned when they wanted to build more properties before, will this be a drip application where you get 2 and then a couple of months down the line, there's another application and another one until they've got the amount that they want all along. Plus, I'm afraid of setting precedents. We just seem to be looking at greenbelt and saying, well, that's all right, we'll let them have this, we'll let them have that. And before you finish, all the greenbelts disappeared bit by bit. There's enough brownfield in South Ribble to build on. I don't think you need to take this greenbelt area, so I'm up for refusal.
Okay, Councillor Green, thanks for that. Manky mess was the word. Councillor Watson.
Sure. Similar to what Councillor Green just said, actually, it's a situation, it feels like they've allowed the site to deteriorate in order to then put a proposal on for a building. So they've almost gone a step to do something that was acceptable, allow it to become a manky mess, and then go for building basically on it. It almost seems like a long-term strategy in my head, and it does worry me if that was to become a consistent pattern in the greenbelt. I know this kind of thing has happened elsewhere in the country and so on. So I don't know how to refuse it, though, is my problem. I don't know on what grounds I could refuse it on, I suppose. It would, again, I'm assuming it's the green belt policy, it would have to be. Yeah. So I think I should probably second Councillor Green's refusal on this because of that concern and it being a precedent for the future. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Watson. Councillor Muller.
Thank you, Chair. I do agree with what's said about the Greenbelt situation. We're supposed to have special circumstances when we talk about Greenbelt. I accept what Councillor Moon said about it being a mess and, this will probably improve it, but we are eroding our Greenbelt policy from my point of view if we allow this to happen. And I personally think that they're allowing the area to be a mess to justify getting that through, and my fear is what's also been said, that could be something for the future. So I would look at supporting refusal.
Yeah, Dan, you wanted to come back in. Are the applicants the owners of these buildings?
I'm not sure on the ownership. I just wanted to talk in terms of the impact on the green belt. So when we're looking in terms of the impact on the green belt, the assessment we've made here is the volume of the building. So in terms of the protection of the green belt, we're looking at the protection of the openness. So the volume of the building, as I said before, is 6,000 cubic meters. So when we're looking at the replacement for that, which in effect will be 2 dwellings, while this is outlined and we can't be sure of the volume of those dwellings, we have enough scope within the size of that building to have something that will be no greater than that, most likely less in its volume for 2 dwellings. So in effect, there could be a benefit in terms of the openness of the green belt, regardless of the state of those buildings. We're looking at a volume replacement. And while they may have been, agricultural buildings in the past, they have an extant permission that was granted in 1998 for the use of them as manufacture conversion and horse boxes. So it's not a replacement of agricultural buildings for dwellings. It's in effect a replacement of a large commercial building for 2 dwellings. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Daniel. Councillor Flannery, you want to come back in?
Yeah, I was only just going to make a comment to help ease some of the comments. What Daniel's just said is absolutely right. I visited the site last time and it wasn't agricultural buildings. It was a joiner's shop and there was some manufacturing, light engineering going on. And from my memory, and I'm okay on memory, the applicants look completely different. But that was just to help with the general comments which were made. So thanks.
Councillor Watson.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I do understand, obviously, it's not an agricultural building at present. Again, it's more for me setting that precedent of allowing people to, to do this kind of commercial premises and then allow it to run down to achieve basically what is possibly the long-term goal all along. That's what it feels like to me. So that's I do understand, but yeah, I'm still of the same opinion. Thank you.
Councillor Hancock.
Thank you, Chair. There's no doubt from what's been said that this site was a real mess beforehand. And as far as sort of horsebox building, I think there's been a decline in that in this particular area. And I'm absolutely sure that the development that's proposed on this site will certainly add to that area and make it more pleasant and pleasing for the rest of the residents roundabout. So I would go for approval with conditions. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Hancock. Do you have anybody else wanted to? Councillor Smith?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I mean, the report itself and the recommendations, it says, although finely balanced, and I think it is finely balanced. I don't think there's any doubt about that. And I suppose I've only got to sort of look at what happened down, or is still happening down Chainhouse Lane, that once one application comes in, you get a flood of them and you can't stop them. You just cannot stop them. Every time we have totally lost control of that area, totally lost control from a planning point of view. Our hands are totally tied and we can't do anything about it. And that was because one house was allowed. Now there are about 14. And it is a real problem. I will be voting against this, I'm afraid. I will. I don't support it at all. And just on that, what is actually coming true, Chair, and I again was at the meeting and I was at the previous one as well, as it happens, and what the residents were saying and what the operator was saying that was working on that building, that he was actually his lease wasn't being renewed. He got a successful business and he was being, to all intents and purposes, thrown out of it, so they could let the building deteriorate. And it has been a long-term plan. And what he said those years ago has come true. But there we are. Thank you. I'll be voting against it, Chair.
Okay, Councillor Smith, thanks for that. Right, so we had a proposal for approval by Councillor Moon, which was seconded by Councillor Flannery. We then had an amendment by Councillor Mrs. Green for refusal, which was seconded by Councillor Gareth Watson. So we will vote on the amendment first. Yes.
Sorry, Chair, can we have some reasons?
I presume it's because it's the Greenbelt. And that is the reason, Greenbelt. Okay. So we are going to go to vote on the amendment for refusal, which was Councillor Mrs Green's proposal. We'll go for the amendment first, please. Okay, Alex, if you'd like to give us the outcome of that vote, please.
Thank you, Chair. Members have voted not to refuse the application by 9 votes to 4.
Okay, so we now go to the original proposal by Councillor Moon, seconded by Councillor Flannery for approval. If we could all vote now, please. Okay, Alex, if you could give us the outcome of that vote.
Thank you, Chair. Members have voted to approve the application with conditions.
Okay, moving on swiftly to agenda item number 9, land to the east of Brook Lane, Farington Moss. Janice, if you would like to present this report, thank you.
Thank you, Chair. So this application relates to a parcel of land to the east of Brook Lane and the south of Lodge Lane in Farington Moss. The site's western boundary is a public right-of-way footpath 10, and to the north is footpath number 11. There's one residential property to the northwest, together with a landscaping business, and the A582 lies to the east and the railway lies to the south. So just to give some context with this slide, it's an aerial view which shows the site, the railway, the A582, the site access. This is the residential property and the landscaping business. So the application proposes the erection of a glass house and a packing warehouse together with associated parking. This is the proposed site layout with the glass house located along the site's western boundary and the packing warehouse is along the eastern boundary. And then there's a landscaping belt that's existing between it and the A582. So this photo shows the access to the site, which is an unadopted and currently only serves the landscaping business, the residential dwelling and I believe farm fields. The site plan from the previous slide showed the turning areas within the application site as well as the parking. So this shows the elevation of the packing warehouse, which would measure 80 metres by 18 metres. And there's an open section to one end just to be used as a covered loading bay, and that measures 20 metres by 18 metres. And then this slide just shows the glass house, which again measures 80 metres by 18 metres. So the business currently operates from a site off Parker Lane. This just shows the two sites. As the current site has a number of other businesses operating there and an increase of about 20 units over the last 18 months, the environment of this current business has been compromised, resulting in the need for a new site to be found. The application site is within the green belt where buildings for agriculture are among the exceptions to the general presumption against inappropriate development. The glass house is therefore not inappropriate development. However, the packing warehouse in itself is not an agricultural use. Therefore, the applicant has had to demonstrate the need for the warehouse. The submitted details were considered by ADAS, who are the council's advisors on agricultural development. This is reported at section 8.2 of the committee report. ADAS have confirmed they support the agricultural merits of the proposal and consider it is a logical transition away from the existing constrained site. They also advise that both planning applications and appeal decisions have accepted that a warehouse is an appropriate use if located next to an agricultural facility that requires a parking area for goods and produce. So this is a view of the site taken from the access, and it shows the public right-of-way along the western boundary, which in turn leads to a level crossing over the railway line. So Network Rail, although they do not object to the proposal, have some concerns as they consider it will result in an increase in use over a level crossing. So although the public right-of-way links to other public rights-of-way, which in turn link to new housing development in the area, there's nothing to suggest that the proposal will increase usage, and the applicant has confirmed employees of the business will not be using the public right-of-way or level crossing to access the site. Lancashire County Council's infrastructure delivery team initially objected to the proposal, because as part of the A582 dualling works, Woodfield Bridge would need to be replaced, and they identified the site, the application site, as a works compound. However, they've since removed their objection and now consider that they can still build the bridge post-development, although it would present challenges. So one letter of objection has been received, as reported in section 5 of the report. It's considered matters such as dust and noise from construction works and hours of use can be controlled by conditions. Due to the separation distance between the dwelling and the proposed business, it's considered there should be no adverse impact on residential amenity. It must also be recognised that an existing business is immediately adjacent to the dwelling. So, on balance, it's considered that the application is acceptable in planning terms and is recommended for approval, subject to the imposition of conditions. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thanks for your presentation, Janice. We don't have any registered speakers on this application. Neither of the ward members are with us, and the applicant or the agent isn't wishing to speak either, so I'll open it up to committee. Councillor Smith.
Thank you, Chair. This is a substantial application for what is in Greenbelt, but I think the work that's been done with ADAS really lays it out that they consider it a rural facility, and I think it's quite right. I think it is. This Dudham Brothers are a substantial company. They've been going for 100 years, Chair, in that type of business, and they've been, I think we would say, they've been looking for a site for some while, and it's certainly something we wouldn't want to see losing from South Ribble, because the site that they're in at the moment is not viable. It's not acceptable. The land itself is very, very difficult to get at from any other way. You can almost can't access it apart from the small access that it's got. So I think it's a good application, Chair. I understand that that the building itself, but I mean that they're growing a product there that needs moving on a regular basis. If they had to move that product off site to another site to then load it and whatever, that wouldn't make it sustainable. So I think it's a sustainable development, and I will propose that we approve it with the conditions stated, Chair. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Smith. Councillor Adams.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I agree with Councillor Smith. I think it's a comprehensive report which kind of covers all bases, policy compliant, and I think it's something that we should support as a planning committee in terms of allowing this business to develop here in South Ribble. So I'm quite happy to second approval. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Adams. Councillor Watson.
Thank you, Chair. I don't have the same concerns that I did about the previous application with this being in the Greenbelt. It certainly feels like something that's intending to be there for a significant length of time. It's not going to be a fly-by-night. It's obviously well established, as Councillor Smith has already mentioned. It's what's the word I'm looking for? Sorry, my brain's just gone for a second. It has a habit of doing that occasionally. It frees up, of course, another small business property. So obviously that helps at the present when those kind of sizes of units are very much in demand in the area. So it helps with other businesses moving in. So I certainly would agree with everything that's been said by our colleagues here. And yeah, I'm happy to go along with approval for this. Thank you.
Councillor Mrs. Green.
Yeah, it was more of a question to the officers, actually. It's intimated, this report, that this packing building is linked with the agricultural buildings, greenhouses and what have you, which it's part agricultural, so that should be okay. But what I'm querying is on page 39, where it says Greenbelt, 3 paragraphs down, if the intention is for produce to be delivered onto the site from elsewhere, with a view to it being packaged and redistributed off-site. In other words, is it definitely only going to be for the people who are growing on there, or is it going to be used as a redistribution place where produce from other places are brought in, packaged there, and then moved out? In which case, then, that's not linked to that agriculture thing, and it's in Greenbelt, so it wouldn't be suitable. Have you any information on that?
Janice, if you'd like to come back on that.
Yeah, there will be other produce being brought into site for packaging. They'll be packaging the stuff that they grow on the site, but they also package other things as well. But it's all to do with the same agricultural facility. It's all it's part of fresher produce, so it's salad produce. So I've listed them somewhere in the report.
Just makes me a little bit worried, because it says it says that no very special circumstances have been demonstrated which would outweigh the impact on the green belt, because then that would become a business unit, not something that's linked with their agriculture. It's sort of a separate business thing if they're packing for somebody else.
Sorry, what page were you reading from?
On page 39. I'm trying to find it on here. Wait a minute.
So, summary.
Yeah, it says, if the intention is for produce to be delivered onto the site from elsewhere with a view to it being packaged and redistributed off-site, then the warehouse is not considered to fall under the definition of agriculture and would instead be a business / employment use, which is a bit of a worry for me with it being in Greenbelt.
Yeah, that's the summary of the letter of objection.
Right.
That's not what.
So is that not the case?
That's the point of objection that's being raised. So
right.
The answers to that will be in the body of the report.
And have they intimated if that would be acceptable then, if it's if they're bringing stuff in from elsewhere and packaging it there?
Because that's all part of the evidence that's been provided by the applicant, and that's been considered by ADAS, who have assessed whether it's legitimate business in the Greenbelt and there's a need for that agricultural use.
Okay, thanks for that, Janice. It being agricultural. Councillor Hesketh.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As far as I'm concerned, we should not stifle local businesses. And this is a local business that's been around for a long, long time. It's an extension of what it has been. You want to expand a little bit. It does employ local people. That's a big thing as well. it does comply with our South Ribble policies and so forth, and I'll go along with it, Mr. Chairman.
Local produce for local people as well. There we go. Right, so we've had, are you all right with everything now, Councillor Green? Yeah. So we've had a proposal for approval by Councillor Smith, seconded by Councillor Adams. Do I have any other proposals on this application? No? Okay, if we can go to the vote for approval then, please. Okay, Alex, if you can give us the outcome of that vote.
Thank you, Chair. Members have voted unanimously to approve the application, subject to conditions.
Okay, thank you very much for that, Alex. Agenda item number 10 this evening. Number 4, Parklands Close, Penwortham. And Debbie Roberts, if you'd like to present the item. Thank you.
Thanks, Chair. Number 4, Parklands Close, is a 2-storey semi-detached property within the residential built-up area of Penwortham, and the application's been called in by 2 councillors. The proposal is for a 2-storey side extension with a single-storey rear. Concerns were raised with the agent because of the impact upon the neighbours at number 2. We asked for changes and amended plans were submitted, but as you can see from the lower plans, all they do is remove the upper storey of the proposed rear elevation. It's the side extension, I beg your pardon, that affects number 2. That remains unchanged. The block plan on the left shows the existing site and the existing dwelling. The right is the amended proposal. And you can see the slightly staggered and offset relationship with number 2. Our residential design SPD requires 13 metres between a blank gable and a habitable room window. This, if constructed in this form, whilst it's not completely side on to number 2, will be between 0.6 metres and 1.2 metres from the common boundary, so no more than 2 metres from the property itself. And number 2 has conservatory, orangery with side-facing habitable room windows at ground floor. I'll show you some photographs of those in a second. It's considered that given the siting design and relationship with number 2, the proposal will create an overbearing and oppressive impact upon the amenity of those residents with having a 2-storey extension against a single-storey habitable room. So we've got 2 photos that highlight the staggered relationship between the application site and number 2. You can see the side of number 2 there, and it's side facing orangery. I did put some red boxes on these, but it appears the wrong slide's on there, but not to worry. The extension will be here, and the single storey will be at the rear. So on the right-hand photograph, the extension will be here, and this is the orangery that it will be facing side on to. And these 2 demonstrate the proximity to the boundary with number 2 and the neighbour's single-storey side and rear extension. So this is the orangery that is along the side and wraps around the rear, and the extension on number 4 will be here, 0.6 and 1.2 metres away from this common boundary, and this is the extension it will be looking onto. I appreciate it's already substandard in spatial terms, but that's the way it is. What we can't do is make it any worse than it already stands. We've taken into account the personal circumstances that have been given to us by the applicant, and they are relevant, but we've also got to take into account the residential amenity of the neighbours at number 2. And overall, the proposal doesn't comply, taking people out of the equation, proposal doesn't comply with the requirements of our policy and our residential design SPD. So it's recommended for refusal by virtue of the size, scale, siting and limited separation distance to number 2 and the resulting detrimental impact on residential amenity Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thanks for your presentation, Debbie. Right, we have Councillor Ian Watkinson wishing to speak via Teams. Councillor Watkinson, can you hear us out there in Yorkshire? Councillor Watkinson. Okay, he's got to send apologies because he can't get a signal in Yorkshire. Why does that not surprise me? Right, we have the applicant, Debbie Jones and Peter Jones. Do you want to speak at the same time, or do you want to do it separately? Yeah, okay, all right. So if you'd like to speak first, Debbie. If you'd like to speak, turn your microphone on. Just press the speak button.
There we go. Sorry. So the reason for this extension is because of myself. I was diagnosed 3 years ago with stage 4 lung cancer. This is nothing to do with smoking, as I've never smoked in my life. You just need lungs to get lung cancer. My stage 4 lung cancer is a rare mutation called ALK positive. Now, this is treatable, but it's not curable. At some point, all my treatment will stop working and the cancer will kill me. If you've seen the news recently, you'll know about Deborah James, who was a stage 4 bowel cancer patient. Deborah's treatment stopped working and she had to have end-of-life care. This will be my reality one day. To have this extension would mean we would be able to have the extra room and accommodation for my family to stay and for them to support me when we really need it. The treatment that I'm on at the moment is a harsh one, which comes with many side effects. One of these side effects is fatigue, which is always a challenge. Some days are easy to cope with, and my life is just normal, like walking to the shops or playing with the kids in the park. Other days, just walking up the stairs can really tire me out. To have the facilities downstairs would really help me on days like these, and would also help when we need the extra support. My cancer treatment is a roller coaster ride, and I have no idea when the bad is going to happen. Where we are at the moment, we have great network of support with our neighbours, and this is so important to us. I want my family to be somewhere they feel secure and comfortable when we have to go through the bad times. You can't, if we move somewhere else, we just can't guarantee this. Although I have tolerated the treatment as so far, these circumstances have an understandable psychological and mental toll on me and my family, and it is important for me to be able to have the quality time with my family, and this extension will provide this. When I was recovering from brain surgery, which was due to the cancer spreading to my brain and becoming stage 4, I had to stay at my parents' house in Warrington for 3 weeks. I needed a lot of support, which my husband couldn't provide as he was caring for my 3-year-old and 5-year-old at the time. We had no room at our house for my parents to stay, so I had to stay away from my family. This was heartbreaking as my life has been cut short and every moment with my family is extremely precious. Thank you.
Thank you, Debbie. Thank you. Peter, would you like to speak?
Okay. Right. We don't have a retirement to look forward to together. We have the here and now to enjoy.
and make the most of us as a family. The extension would give Debbie the facilities and the room that she needs and we need as a family. When Debbie needs more support, an extra room, the extension will give us opportunity to have family support around. A family member can stay and support Debbie, the children and myself. The neighbours' support is invaluable. With the support they give our family, the extension will also help me when I'm on my own, so I can have help from a family member to support the children if the children are struggling coping without having their mother around. There is no other option for us. The children need us. The children need as much stability as we can provide so they have a bright and positive future. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Peter. Councillor Watkinson has sent a message to us saying, I understand the officer reasons for refusal and that there could be impact on number 2 Parklands Conservatory outlook, but would urge colleagues to look sympathetically at these uniquely dreadful personal circumstances. I can't read the rest of it because it's gone. It says every other resident on Parklands Close, and then it finishes. He said he's got an awful signal because he's in Yorkshire. Okay?
Chair, it says every other resident on Parklands Close supports this application. Many thanks. That's all.
Okay. Thanks, Debbie. Okay. I mean, I really do sympathise with you, and it's a dreadful, heartbreaking story you're telling us. Unfortunately, I don't think those circumstances actually are covered by planning, compliance and policy. So, but anyway, I'm going to just open it up to committee straight away. Councillor Flannery, then Councillor Mrs Green.
Thank you, Chair. Debbie and Peter, well done for speaking. Just an observation here. Unless I'm mistaken, when I was looking at the information which was presented before, the issue is a design issue by the looks of it. And I think what we've got to do is try and do everything we possibly can to sort of come up with something in terms of maybe a compromise. But unless I'm mistaken, the orangery looked very, very close to the boundary of both properties. Now, I'm presuming the orangery wouldn't have required planning permission previously. And if the issue here, no, the issue here is what Debbie and Peter are facing. That's more the issue. What we've got to try and decide is, can we do what we can to help both parties in terms of the position everyone's facing? But when I looked at what was presented before, the orangery is the issue, and it seems to be very, very close to their boundary. So surely, can we not do something with the design in terms of what, I'm not sure whether Peter and Debbie will have this or want this, the design, your consultant designer, go back and do some minor changes, because there's definitely another factor here which seems to be not considered. Because if that orangery would have needed planning permission, and that probably wouldn't have been as close to the boundary as what we're all facing. So can we ask that then?
Yeah, Debbie, if you'd like to come in, yeah.
Yeah, I've not been to the site. This isn't one of my applications. I'm just reading it out tonight. So, but looking at the comments we've got and the drawings we've had, Emma, who was dealing with this, went back to your designer and asked him to change things. And he has done, to be fair to him, he has done, but not in the way that she asked him to do that. I mean, through committee, this could be deferred tonight to allow that to go ahead. We can go back and ask him to do that. But we have already asked, and that's not happened. So the opportunity has been presented, whether that's because it's not right for you or because he's not taking your instruction. I don't know. But we have done that, and this is the second set of plans that Emma has received. So it may be that just a rear extension, a 2-storey, where he's reduced that, might be better for you than a side. But that's something you have to discuss with your designer, not with us, I think, because we don't know what you need. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thanks, Debbie. Yeah, like I say, it's very emotive. I've got Councillor Mrs Green and Councillor Caroline Moon.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how much land or garden you have at the back and how much they're allowed to extend. It may well be, like they've said, if you could go back and get your plans altered to extend perhaps more out rather than up, and then it's not as intrusive on the neighbour. And also perhaps like any adjoining wall that would overlook the orangery, if you could arrange to have sort of obscure glass windows so it wouldn't look onto the orangery and it would keep the privacy, help with the privacy. I think you're correct. I think it's going to be like a redesign thing that you need, and perhaps if you can do some alterations that way, you'll gain the space a bit more that way rather than that way, and at least then you've got some facilities for what you need without impacting too much on your neighbour.
Councillor Moon.
Thanks, Chair. For me, this is difficult because it's not. If I was looking at this and it was 11 metres and it should be 13, you'd just be thinking, come on, let's just say go ahead and do it. But 0.6 to 1.2 metres is so far out from 13 metres. So for me, it's just so significant that I just couldn't sit here and agree that something that close to each other, regardless what, I think if it was at single level, if this was, as being said, if this was a side extension first floor and a double extension at the back, I'd be saying absolutely yes. But I can't with the double at the side. I mean, those distances are a fraction. And I think for us, the difficulty we have as a planning committee is we're looking at planning policy and we're looking at planning law. And as Chair said, if only there was something in our planning policy that said in X, Y and Z circumstances, we can throw that rule book out the window and we can allow people to build what they need. If only I was sat here with that in front of me. But we're not. I don't like seeing the word refusal on the front of this under these circumstances. I want to desperately find a way. I'd like an answer to the question, if you can give it, of when they went back to the agent. Is it the fact that you need it built like this to meet your needs, or has there been a breakdown in communication there? I think that would be helpful to us to maybe as a first step to understand that through you, Chair, if that's okay.
Councillor Adams.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I would agree with the comments that have been made. There is a big part of me with my professional head on in terms of dealing with situations like Debbie's, and I think you're very courageous and very, you've shown unbelievable strength to come here tonight to talk on this with the issues that you have going on that are clearly more important. But for me, having supported people in your position in their own home, I know how important this is, not just to yourself, but to your family and to your friends. And for that time to be a really important time for you all. So in my mind, I agree with the other councillors that I'm not comfortable with refusal on this. In my mind, we need to find a way forward. And that is by working together to find a solution which is the best for Debbie, for Peter and their family. And I'm, quite confident by working together and using the expertise that we have in the planning department that we can find that. Thank you.
Councillor Molyneux, then Councillor Hesketh, and then I'll bring Debbie Roberts back in.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. This is obviously very distressing for all of us. Situation we've got really is, unless we defer this and allow the opportunity to try and come up with a compromise, I think we're pretty well going to have to refuse it. And I wouldn't want to do that. So for that reason, I would support deferral and hope at least give them another opportunity to try and sort that out. Because if it comes back as this again, I'm just afraid it would be refused, and obviously you don't then get what you're looking for. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Molyneux. Councillor Hesketh, and then I'll bring Debbie Roberts back.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think this is a very important application, I do for sure, and I have a great deal of feeling for it. And we're always talking about several special circumstances. Now, surely this is a special circumstance. And I think that further negotiation should go on and sort the thing out, Mr. Chairman. It's not right the way it is.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Hesketh. Just before I bring you in, Debbie, Councillor Flannery wants to come back.
Yeah, please, thanks. This is what I wanted to bring up, you see. So the orangery, on the plan to the left, which is very close to the boundary, if this application for this extension was there before that orangery, which didn't need planning, there wouldn't be an issue here tonight. But there is because of that, because on plan it looks like it's a lot closer. So I think working with the applicants and their design team, we must go for the deferment to give them a chance to try and resolve this, because there's one thing's come before the other. And I think Councillor Moon's comment about was there a breakdown, what's the answer to that question, is also important, because they might need a bit more time on this, because there might have been a breakdown in terms of the design. Because when I read our officers asked for something and they didn't get it, it's a bit unusual. It's a bit of a flag, really. So yeah, I'll go with deferment too. Thank you.
Debbie, did you want to come back before?
Yeah, just all I wanted to say was I think there are options, but I think because of the proximity to the boundary next to number 2, and you've got very limited space in towards your rear boundary, I don't think you're going to get what you want. But there are certainly options. I think a 2-storey on the side is too much, and I can't see how you'll get around that. But by pulling out at the rear, you're going to lose a lot of your garden space. There are options. It's not necessarily going to be what you want or need, but I agree in that I think a deferral might be a better option to try and reduce it to the point where we can say, yes, that's a good enough compromise. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Smith.
Thank you, Chair. We all have the greatest sympathy, don't we? But, we're not here to sort of redesign an application. There's an architect somewhere with a drawing board that's probably more qualified than we are to come up with something slightly different that would be acceptable. And I think Councillor Molyneux said that if it comes back the same, that it will be looking at refusal, and that's not what anybody wants. So if there is an option, and it's difficult for us to see these things on there, and as I say, it's not up to us to redesign it, but it does want redesigning because the separation distances are just not acceptable, unfortunately. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Smith. Yeah, as you say, the design as it is at the moment isn't policy compliant, nowhere near policy compliant. But we've had a proposal for deferral, and it's been seconded. And I hope you can all go with that, and I hope none of you will go for refusal in this heartbreaking case. If we can do that as a show of hands, are we all happy to defer the application? Okay, Alex, Councillor Moon.
I was just going to say, is there in the process like an expedience of getting it back? Is there a way that you can jump the queue and just get it back on the agenda as soon as it comes? I'm up for a special planning committee if we need one, guys, but I think we need to get it back quick.
We'll pull out old stops. Yeah, definitely.
Okay, Alex, if you'd give us the outcome of that vote.
Thank you, Chair. Members have voted unanimously to defer determination of the application.
Okay, so if you go away and speak to your architect, you cannot come back with that same design, because unfortunately we would have to refuse it, I think, because it just is nowhere near policy compliant as it is. Okay? All right. Thanks for your attendance. All right, I wish you both very well. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, that's the end of tonight's planning committee meeting. Thanks very much for your attendance. Thank you, Councillor Mullinor. Thank you, Councillor Sharple.